endorsed two of the Democrats that have added to excitement in House and Senate races there in Missouri. The in one of the nation's toughest reelection races, Claire McCaskill in a very, very tight spot. She's being, she's who's her challenger? I have no idea who. I'm blanking on who her challenger is at this point. Have you heard about Claire McCaskill's race?
Yeah, I can't remember his name either. But last night we got some little better polling on her, so we're hoping she can pull it out. I think she can.
Yeah, I think I do know. I think it's like I don't know. I'm gonna look it up. But like the thing that really bothers me about her is not only has she tacked very much to the right wing, she's also taken swipes at like leaders of the Democratic Party, such as Elizabeth Warren, and she's called Bernie Sanders. She's called them crazy Democrats, which I mean is really, in my opinion, to my mind, unnecessary. Like these are people you're going to be working with. These are people who are cruising to re-elections pretty easily, and they're the most popular people with their constituents in the country. At least I know Bernie Sanders is. So, I mean, I don't think that's, like, those kind of jabs aren't really necessary. I think they're just kind of classless and just a purely political act that's designed to appeal to Fox News and their base. And I just really don't like that, although still, same thing with Joe Manchin. Oh, Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley is the guy who it is. Who is rallying. He's the kind of the guy the Republicans want the most. He excites MAGA people, he excites establishment people, and yeah, he's just good vibes for them, pretty much all around. And yeah, I just really don't like Claire McCaskill taking swipes at Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren like that.
Yeah, I can understand that. But you know, it's an election time. You say things to try to get votes. She's probably trying to sway independents who might lean one way or the other to vote for her. It's a very conservative state, and and Elizabeth Warren is sort of is a butt of conservative jokes, and I guess Bernie Sanders is too. So yeah, I mean, I can understand why you don't like it, and I don't really like it either. But on the other hand, she's trying to get elected, and I'd rather have her in that seat than Josh Hawley.
I mean, I would too, but there's definitely better ways. Like there's many Democrats who are doing this, having the same challenge that she's having, and are not resorting to that. So, like personally, I think it'd be nice to like hear about like something like I regretted that campaign rhetoric, Bernie Elizabeth from Claire McCaskill if she wins, but if not, then oh well. Yeah. So of course we had Ted Cruz and Beto O'Rourke closing at the 8 p.m. hour, and then of course Tennessee, where Taylor Swift pretty much single-handedly, from what we can understand, has inspired 767% more young people to get to the polls for early voting. And it's going to be one of the nation's toughest re-election races, again, for Claire McCaskill. In Deep Blue, New Jersey, Bob Menendez, Democratic incumbent, is an unexpectedly close race, partially fueled by some pretty incredible ethics troubles, including sleeping with underage prostitutes in New Jersey, but there are some very interesting ones. The Republican held 7th congressional district. By the way, we will have someone coming on later, in the 2 p.m. hour. We'll have someone come on later who actually worked on that campaign, volunteered on that campaign. It'll be interesting to talk to him about that. And that's the Leonard Lance, Tom Malinowski race in New Jersey. But to me, much more interesting and much more tragic is the situation going on with Bob Menendez. What have you heard about that, Glenn?
Well, I mean, we're just getting flooded with commercials for both Menendez and Hugan on TV. It's like 50-50, and they're usually back to back. It's hilarious, and it seems like both candidates have problems. You mentioned some of Menendez's problems. There was, corruption trial, which he managed to slither out of that trouble. But he got, like censured by the Senate or something like that. So, he's got problems. But Hugan, he's got this big drug company, and he was sued and lost some suit because there was some dangerous aspect to the drugs he was producing, and so he's got some scandals too. But I really think that, I did hear last night that Menendez is up 15% in the latest poll, which seems crazy to me.
Wow.
When only a few days ago it was considered too close to call. So I don't know what to make of that. But it seems like he's more like on the safe list now. But we'll see. I mean, in the primary, the Democratic primary for Senate, this virtual unknown went up against Menendez and got something like 35 to 40% of the vote, which was a real scare for Menendez, and we're seeing the results of that now. He's definitely, potentially in trouble.
Yeah, and I think, like, personally, in my mind, I think the Democrats, and this is to make some, I think the Democrats should easily put all their support behind this Democratic challenger and kicked whoever. Do you know who was the Democratic challenger?
I don't know. It was a woman. I'd never heard of her before. She was basically an unknown, and it would have been a mistake to put her over Menendez because she has no experience, So, but at least Menendez has name recognition, and before these scandals broke, I think he was a respected senator. And he's a chair of a pretty important committee. I forget which one it is, but I think it's a finance committee. I forget. So, but I think that he's going to win, just because I think New Jerseyans are going to come out to vote. Maybe not to vote for him, but to vote for their congressman, and then they'll give him the vote too.
Yeah, that would be interesting, and hopefully they'll push him up across the line. I think though he's definitely going to win, but which is a little bit disturbing to me. I think the person who won and I've been just quickly going. I think it was Lisa McCormick was the name of the woman who was in the primary challenge, and I really would like to see her getting a little bit more support, because you got someone like, I really think if she had won, I think we wouldn't be in a situation where this race would be in a question at all, and we would have to have like even debate. I think it would be a very clear win from someone who I do believe was a pretty progressive Democrat. She had her policy straightened out, and I think we wouldn't have had this to deal with this situation in the first place, and not have a obviously like very creepy person, Bob Menendez, run in a Senate race like this, which just I don't know, it just would be a lot more comforting to me to know that another Democrat was given a chance in the seat that Bob Menendez has held for quite a while.
I don't know, maybe. Would she have been able to raise as much money as him? I mean, would she be on the airwaves with all these commercials to, run up against Bob Hugan's advertisements? I don't know.
I don't know. Was she I don't know if she was a progressive or what. But I like if she was like one of those small dollar raisers. I think that could have been kind of a pretty palpable. Like that could have been an interesting connection for her. But we will see. That race in New Jersey, I think, though, is pretty solidly a win for Bob. But the only in 8:30 we just have one state closing. That's going to be Arkansas. The only semi-competitive district in Arkansas's second district is Arkansas's second district, which was recently in the news because of a controversial ad that supported French Hill, the Republican incumbent. If you don't remember what that is I think that's the ad that was the two black women, the conversation. that they had was like, I'm so glad that so and so French Hill were one run because it'll keep our husbands out of jail or something like that. And he's tough on. I don't know. It was some like very like racially charged thing that I don't know if you remember watching. Is I remember it was
I
like
never
wow.
saw it. I didn't
Yeah,
see that.
and if we had that ad, I think it would be uh nice. But like that's going to be the only big race, and like there has been some, I don't know if you remember, but through it's been a long midterm season, but there has been definitely some crazy ads. What were some of the ads that you remember that like stuck out to you?
Um, well, I haven't seen the worst ones um, because they're not being shown. I've heard that there's a very racist ad that the Republicans have put out, and I forget what it's about. But I haven't seen. I mean, I'm mostly inundated with these Hugan and Menendez ads. Um, I've seen some others of for congressmen that aren't even in my district. I've seen some Josh Welly ads. They're fine. He's the one running. He's the Democrat running against Chris Smith. Chris Smith has only put out ads very recently. I guess he thinks his seat is safe. It probably is. But no, I haven't seen any really horrible ads.
Uh,
You know.
that's that is pretty lucky, because there definitely has been some pretty tough ones. So at least across the country, especially in places like the more red districts, I think people tend to get a little bit more wild. At 9 p.m., we have the rest of Kansas, Louisiana, rest of Michigan, Minnesota, Nebraska, New Mexico, New York, western half of South Dakota, rest of Texas, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. All right, so we got Michigan, we got Gretchen Whitmer. That's the almost all-female Democratic ticket there. Year of the Woman, makes sense. Wisconsin, we got all eyes on Scott Walker. He's facing his toughest re-election yet. The Democrats are hoping for also a symbolic victory in the seat vacated by retiring House Speaker Paul Ryan. Shout out to the real progressive in that race, Randy Bryce, who is going to challenge Paul Ryan, but Paul Ryan obviously had to retire for a myriad of reasons, possibly because of what he knew could be coming in the Mueller report, or possibly because he just didn't want to face a tough race and just had enough of politics. We just don't know. But in Minnesota, the first congressional district, it's considered Republicans' best chance to unseat a sitting Democrat. Republicans also have their eyes on the attorney general race, where accusations of domestic abuse against Keith Ellison has created an opening for the opponent there in what was going to be probably a pretty easy race for a well-known politician there like Keith Ellison. And yeah, that's going to be. Do you have any thoughts on any of the Michigan, Wisconsin, or Minnesota races there?
I'm not that familiar with them, so no, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's very tough to get your head around like every race. And then of course we got Arizona at 10 p.m. Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, most of North Dakota, and the east corner of Oregon. And that is Jeff Flake, Dean Heller territory, and Jackie Rosen, who's going to be trying to challenge it for a seat in that area. So, yeah, have you been following that Jackie Rosen race? So that, from what I understand, is going to be key to pick up the Senate.
Yeah, to beat Heller. Um, yeah, I've been following it as much as the news has been following it, which hasn't been that much. The news has been so enamored with Beto O'Rourke and the Georgia and Florida races that they haven't concentrated too much on Wacky Jackie. But she was interviewed the other night by MSNBC, and the impression I get is that she's a pretty normal person, good head on her shoulders, not a particularly flamboyant or charismatic candidate, but a very solid one. And maybe that will appeal to Nevadans. I don't know. I don't think too much of Dean Heller personally, but we'll see what happens. I think she's up in the polls slightly, so we just have to hope for that wave.
Yeah, it's going to be that's probably going to be one of the toughest ones to deal with. All right. Now we change away from election news to more about Fox.